You're listening to The Jake Asman Show on the SportsMap Radio Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Jake Asman.
Our next guest is one of the best play-by-play voices in all of sports. He was on the call for the Knicks' big win over the Clippers in L.A. yesterday, the Knicks' first win against the Clippers in L.A. since 2010. He's the radio play-by-play voice of the New York Knicks on ESPN 98.7 in New York. He is Ed Cohen, and he joins us right now on our progressive guest line. Ed, can't thank you enough for some time this morning, man. A great job yesterday and great job all season long calling these Knicks, man. It's been so much fun.
Jake, great to be with you, man. And I think you hit it on the head. It's been fun. This team has been special from the jump. And look, 4 games over the next 7 days, but the magic number is 2. And barring the unforeseen, and the Knicks still have business to take care of, but it's looking really good that they're going to make the playoffs for the first time in 8 years.
And when did you realize that this season was different? I mean, coming into the year, I think Knicks fans just wanted to see some growth from this young core. They knew that Thibodeau was the defensive coach that would get the most out of this team, but I don't think anyone saw this coming. When did you realize the Knicks were capable of having this type of year?
You know, Jake, I think you certainly saw something in the 4 preseason games that there's just something different about this group and what Tom Thibodeau had done with them. Even over the summer, while everyone else was down in the bubble, and even during training camp, there was just a connectedness, especially defensively, that you hadn't seen in a long, long time. But I would say for me, you'd probably have to go about a month and a half into the season, because the Knicks had a great stretch late December to January, and they fizzled a bit. They lost 5 in a row. Then they kind of bounced back, and then they came back to life again. But each time they went through one of those tough stretches, they bounced back and really put together a really solid string of games. And you saw that going into the All-Star break. I think they were 19 and 18 at that point. You saw that with what they did with the 9-game winning streak, and it was just one game, really. I mean, you come back to beat Memphis in overtime, and all of a sudden you build on that, and you're almost unbeatable at home. So I think the resiliency, more than anything else, has been the most impressive thing.
Looking at the win yesterday, Ed, I mean, you can make a case that's the best Knicks win they've had in 8 years. What did you make of it yesterday? And did down the stretch, I saw you tweet about it, the fourth quarter, so many different guys were involved in getting that win for the Knicks.
Jake, it was the culmination of what this whole year has been about. And you said it, and you're right. I mean, many times over the last 6-7 years, this is the type of game, given the importance of it, that the Knicks don't win. They don't hold on in the fourth quarter against one of the best teams in the NBA that was fully healthy. Everyone played outside of Serge Ibaka. This was the type of game they don't find a way. And they did last night, which was the most impressive part of it. I think there have been some dramatic wins this year, especially at Madison Square Garden. But when you think about the stakes, Boston loses early. You pull this one out, you've guaranteed yourselves a 500 road trip. What was a crushing road trip on paper coming in. That's huge. And I think right now, by winning yesterday, they're in the driver's seat. It was a great game, but in terms of the importance, I think no doubt this was their most important win of this great season.
Ed, what do you think it says about this Knicks team that they go into L.A. and they win, despite the fact their best player, Julius Randle, only finishes with 14 points?
That's the best part of it. I mean, Tom Thibodeau was asked after the game, Randle didn't have a great game, and he corrected the person who asked the question and said, no, he did have a good game. And the reason is what Randle did in the fourth quarter, Jake, is what you want from your star. And it wasn't his three-point shooting. It wasn't him going to the basket. He made 3 really clutch mid-range shots late in the shot clock that came at critical times for the Knicks. And you know what? The Stars, when it's not their best 4 quarters, find a way to deliver in the critical moments. And that was the best part of it. If you look at what Kawhi Leonard did, I mean, he was 9 of 26. Paul George was 8 for 20. So you're going to have those games where it is a battle of attrition, and sometimes the best players on the floor don't have great, complete games. It's what they do down the stretch. And Randle did that in what's an all-star season. I think he's going to be most improved, and it's not even close. And Jake, it's really getting close to saying he's almost a sure thing for all NBA teams.
Totally agree. Ed Cohen, the Knicks radio voice, is joining us here on the Jake Asman Show, reacting to the Knicks win over the Clippers, their first win against the Clippers in L.A. since 2010. I mean, Ed, you look at Tom Thibodeau. I mean, coming into the year, I was pumped up that he was the guy that Leon Rose chose to hire, but I didn't see this coming. I didn't see this team being this good, so bought into everything that Thibodeau has been preaching. You're covering this team up close. You're watching it every night. Why has Thibodeau been the right coach at the right time for this Knicks team?
Well, these are the great seasons, Jake, and it comes with knowing that the group that was put together has overachieved. I mean, I don't think anyone saw this coming. And I'm sure if you ask Tom Thibodeau when you have a moment with him, and we haven't had that moment yet, but he'd probably say, "Look, I didn't see this. It's 38-30 with 4 games to go." But you know what? Sometimes when you have the right guys in the room who answer to somebody who's going to be on them and guys who want to be coached, there's something special about that. And I think it's been the perfect mix of coach and players. And you look at some of the turning points in this season, the most notable being Derrick Rose coming in early February. I mean, the minute he took the floor with that second, it was in Miami on February 9th. Everything changed. And I think you could make a case even yesterday. If the Knicks don't have Julius Randle, they don't win that game. If they don't have Reggie Bullock in many games this year with his shooting and his defense, they don't win. If they don't have Derrick Rose yesterday, it's not even a contest by halftime. And that just shows how delicate it is, how thin the margin of error is. But that comes back to the guys who are on the roster, what they've given the Knicks all year long, and it comes back to the coach. And it's just been a brilliant coaching job in year number 1 by Tom Thibodeau.
And you mentioned Derrick Rose. I mean, we're watching a player that looks like he's back to, what he was before all those injuries, now in his second stint, of course, with the Knicks. Have you just been blown away by how he's played, how much he's meant to this team?
No doubt. I think his impact on that second group has made the Knicks maybe one of the best bench teams in the entire NBA. What's really impressive, Jake, and we know even at his age, at 32, how crafty he is. He can still outsmart you and beat you off the dribble and find a way to get a good shot off. But if you go back to his first stint with the Knicks in 2016-17, he averaged 18 points per game that year. People forget that, but he was so hesitant to shoot the 3 ball. And I think he was at the point in his career, he was probably 27 at the time, where he was starting to think long term. And he still didn't see himself as a shooter. And there was that hesitancy, I think, to become a 3-point shooter with the mindset of he wanted to extend his career into his mid-30s. He comes back now, and look, the game's changed a lot in 5 years in the NBA. But on this road trip, he's, I think, 12 of 19 from 3-point range. He doesn't take a ton per game, but boy, when a guy like that makes a couple a game, that's huge. I mean, you can't sell what he's meant to this team. It has been such a joy watching him because of how beloved he is, how special a player he is, the fact that injuries robbed him of many of his prime years, and he still got it. And it's been huge for this Knicks team.
We're talking Knicks with Ed Cohen, the Knicks radio voice on the Knicks radio network, ESPN 98.7. Ed, I mean, you look at this team, what's been to me so impressive, it's just the young players continue to get better under Thibodeau. R.J. Barrett in year 2 has looked like a totally different player. Emmanuel quickly might end up being one of the steals of this past year's draft. When you look at this core, how confident are you? How confident should Knicks fans be that this core that they're developing here, this young core in place, is the right core going forward for this Knicks team to continue to excel and get better and better?
Jake, you bring up a great point. I mean, when you look at how this Knicks team ideally is going to be built, and Tom Thibodeau said this during training camp, you could sign guys in free agency, pick up someone via a big trade. You obviously need to hit your draft picks, and then there's that last angle, which is player development. The guys who are already in the building, are they getting better? And that's been the most exciting thing in many ways this year, has been R.J. Barrett's development, Emmanuel quickly. I mean, you hit on someone, you picked 25th. Many people said they reached for him. He wasn't anywhere near that slot in many of the mock drafts coming into the draft, and has just been a revelation. I think one of the great parts about him is that it looked like he had hit the rookie wall in March and bounced back and was just terrific in April and even into the first couple of games of this road trip. Obviously missed him yesterday along with Alec Burks, but between Quickly, R.J. Barrett being the centerpiece, you forget about Mitchell Robinson and the strides he made defensively. And I wouldn't sleep on Obi Toppin either, because he was drafted probably with the mindset of Julius Randle's not going to become an all-star this year. And little did we know that it would be so hard for Obi Toppin to get minutes and get on the floor. But he's somebody who has really shown some nice things the last month or so. And I think if the Knicks begin to really fill out this roster, even if he comes off the bench, he's a threat, and he's only getting better defensively. So I think those four guys in particular, no doubt. I mean, it's an exciting group to have with their youth, what they've been able to do this year, and where the Knicks might be able to plug them in going forward.
Finally, Ed, you look at the Knicks here. I mean, if they lock up the 4th seed and they end up being a team that can host a first-round playoff series, have home court in the first round at MSG, I mean, even with 2,000 fans so far, the Knicks fans have made so much noise at the Garden. It sounds so loud in there. I know for the playoffs, it could get to, about 5,000 or 6,000 fans. What's it been like being at the Garden, and do you think that the Knicks fans that will be there will truly provide that home court advantage come playoff time?
Jake, I'll be honest with you. I'd say the first 2 months of the year when there were no fans, I mean, it was strange. And there were many kind of out-of-body moments where a game would end, the Knicks would have a great win, and 2 minutes later, it was entirely silent. I mean, it was bizarre. Just having the fans back for the last 2+ months has been so great. And Julius Randle said it a couple of weeks ago that, listen, it's not 19,000 plus, but you hear them when it's 1,900 fans. And I think there was this one moment recently during a homestand where Knicks were up. Derrick Rose took a shot clock violation. He kind of let the ball go. Knicks took the violation, and he began clapping in the direction of the fans, who basically gave the Knicks a standing ovation. And it was this really cool connection and moment between the fans who've been allowed in and this Knicks team that surprised so many. So Knicks are the best fans in the NBA, in my opinion, some of the best fans in sports in the world. They deserve this. They deserve to be in the building as the Knicks are on the verge of playing in their first postseason in 8 years. And as much as this has been about the team and the coach, what the players have done, this is about the fans too in a pandemic. And I think it's going to be a really surreal moment when the Knicks take the floor as a playoff team. The fans, even if it's 5,000 or 6,000, are right there with them. It's just, it's really special to think about.
Knicks have the best fans in the NBA, and they also have the 2 best play-by-play announcers in the NBA between Mike Breen and then you on radio. I mean, my goodness, Knicks fans, we're so spoiled, and we finally get some decent basketball to watch, and you guys finally get some great basketball to call.
You know, Jake, Mike Breen is going into the Naismith Hall of Fame this weekend, believe it or not, up in Connecticut and Massachusetts, which will be so special because he is the all-time best and one of the great people you'll ever meet in this business, certainly in New York. I hope to be in the Ithaca College Hall of Fame. You and I should strive for that, my friend. How about that?
Listen, I'll start the campaign for you, and I mean, I still got ways to go. You know, I'm not the voice of the New York Knicks at your age. My goodness.
Listen, man, we had a great experience up there. I don't know how often you speak about it with your listeners, but you're an Ithaca College alum. I am as well. And it's been a lot of fun connecting with people like you and so many others over the years because we have a special network even around the country from a small D3 school in upstate New York.
Absolutely. Well said. And anyone who listens to the show knows I'm a proud Bomber, Ed. So don't you worry there. I definitely got my Ithaca representation in check here. We just need another Cortica Jug game, so we can win that one again, right, Ed?
Looking forward to it. It'll be nice to have it back on campus. But Jake, I was sold when I took the tour with Tom Green 20 years ago on campus. I was hooked that day, and it's been a great 20 years as an alum and as a student. Did that go over your head? Do you know what I'm talking about there?
The Tom Green reference, it might have gone over my head, but I could believe you when you say the tour. The tour sold me when I did it as well.
Jake, did you see the movie Road Trip?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, Ithaca University, right? they can't say Ithaca College in that.
That came out about a year before I went to Ithaca. So needless to say, that was heavy viewing in my 4 years with my friends.
And I can't thank you enough for coming on. Great job all season long, covering this Knicks team, being the voice of this Knicks team on radio. Should be fun. I'm excited for you to get the call playoff series, and we'll do it again soon.
Jake, my pleasure, man. All the best. Thank you.
Ed Cohen, Knicks radio voice, with us there on our progressive guest line. Quick break. We'll wrap up hour one. Jake Asman with you here on Sports Map Radio.
Hey, sports fans, Jake Asman of Sports Map Radio here, and I've got a scoop for you. We partnered up with the folks at Score Trade to test out something new and different in fantasy sports. We'll be kicking off live fantasy sports games on the Score Trade app all the way through the NBA playoffs. Score Trade's a bit different